working with Cycles and Blender Render. Now in this video you'll understand that Blender Render and Cycles are fundamentally different, but there is a way that we can use both in the same scene. So we'll be seeing how to work with only one material. Now of course you realise that there might be a case where you have to create separate Blender Render and Cycles materials. So let's go explore this now over in Blender. Right, so back over in Blender, this is how we've left our scene so far. So we've rendered it out. Now the first thing I'm going to do so I can do a direct comparison is with this rendered scene here. I'm just going to go to slot 2. Now there's nothing on it at the moment, but it does mean when I'm doing a comparison between the Cycles based render in a bit and Blender Render's version of it, I can do a pretty close comparison. So the first thing to do is just discuss about these materials. Now depending on how you're working in Blender Render or Cycles, it can determine whether or not you can use only one material. Now it is nice sometimes to just swap between the two because one gives you a very quick output, the Blender Render, whereas Cycles can be quite noisy and it's quite difficult to work out. But still, because they act differently to one another, you do get different results, and of course you might have to work a bit harder with Cycles to get it looking quite nice. So let's have a look at the material structure. So I'm going to click on the materials tab here. Now the secret, so it's not really a secret because I'm about to tell lots of you, but the secret to this is the node button here. So if we decide to use nodes for Cycles to control the material and just leave Blender Render like this, because you can use nodes to control Blender Render, then we can use just one material slot to control Blender Render and Cycles. So if I go ahead and click the Use Nodes button, and let's go to the 3D view as well to see what's going on. What have I got selected at the moment? I've got this bit at the top selected, so let's zoom in on it. In fact, I think I've just ruined my camera position, but I'm going to undo the lock camera to view. I might have to set that up again in a bit, but never mind. Now you can see here it says Node and None. Now as long as we don't start using that and switch over to Cycles straight away, we can then go ahead and open up the node editor and play about with it. And if I switch it to rendered mode here, there we go, it's a black material at the moment, it's got nothing on there. So if I go ahead and switch here to the node editor, and now I'm here, we can see that it's set up to be a material and straight to an output. And that's really no good because there's no shaders in there or anything else, so we need to set up how that is working. Now these are the nodes left over from the Blender Render setup, so we'll need to get rid of those. Now in the node editor itself as well, you can use, along the header bar here, we can see the Use Nodes checkbox, and we can tick that and untick it as well. So we can go from Blender Render, and that won't work at the moment because we're using nodes. If I turn that off, we return to how it was previously. If we go across to Cycles and Use Nodes, then we can go in and modify this. Now we're going to have to change what's here. Now if you remember, when you have a structure, there's going to be a couple of basic things. There's going to be the shader and the output as a minimum. So let's go ahead and add that now. So I want a diffuse shader here. Well, you might not, depending on what you're up to. And we need an output as well. So if we go to the output here, material output. And we can, I'm going to zoom in there because I'm struggling to read that myself. We can link that to the surface, and then we've got a white pillar on a white background. So let's change that to something a bit different. Let's make it a pink. No, you'll get confused. If you make it bright magenta like that, you'll think a texture's not applied. Okay, so there we go. That's all set up, ready to manipulate. And of course, I've got a challenge for you guys. Okay, so it's challenge time. I'd like you to set up a basic Cycles material. Go ahead and create a Cycles material using nodes, and then use the pillar diffuse texture that we've already created to control the colour of that material. Pause the video now and give that a go. Okay guys, welcome back. Let's hop straight on over into Blender. Well, let's go ahead and first of all control this colour. So we're going to have an image texture controlling that colour. Now I'm just going to zoom out here a little, and so I'm going to add an input. Is it under there? No, it's not. It's under texture, image texture. And I'm going to plug that color into here. So now the image texture itself is using, the diffuse shader is using the image texture to control the color. And as we can see there, it is that pink, that magenta color. And that's why I don't recommend coloring anything in that color, because it's quite confusing, because that also means that there is currently no assigned texture, or the texture is in fact missing. And we are in rendered mode here. So if I go ahead now and click on this little picture to the left of the open button, and we can go and select what we had before. Now that's pretty bright, and I think if I go into my properties editor, I can go to the world view here and actually just turn down the brightness here. I'm going to put it at, I don't know, 0.8 for the moment, so I can see what's actually going on. And I'm just going to change the color of that to white as well, so there's a separate bit going on there. There we go. So we've set up the color of the texture, so whatever the texture actually is, and sent it to the diffuse colors input. Now, of course, we can play about with that. The bump that we've got before, we can have it looking that marbly texture that we had before. Or, of course, we could just leave it as the section there. And, of course, we've also got this diffuse that we made before, so we can also apply that back to it as well. Very powerful to go and change these about. But I'm going to leave it as my standard pillar for the moment, because I don't like that green. Okay, so now we've got the material kind of set up. Let's go ahead and render that out and see what it looks like. Now, I did move the camera earlier, so that may ruin the comparison between the two. Yes, I am focused on that top bit there. So I've done the cycles render now, so I can untick use nodes and go to Blender Render and change the slot if I can. Must be a bit further on here. Yep, there we go. To slot 1. It's a bit of a different view, isn't it? That's kind of ruined that for me. But now I'm on that, I can go ahead and click render. And this will render out the Blender Render version as well, so I can compare the two. Now I might have to reset up that camera in a better position, but you get the idea. How did your Blender Render and Cycles renders come out? I know we don't have the texture applied, but we'll be doing that very soon. So post your results in the discussions, and I will see you in the next lecture.